someone to lead God's plan, drawn from the water, Moses. Circumstances beyond avoidance. The sun goes on until darkness falls upon altogether people, while that same light starts another together group. They start their daily routine, unless some of that group dies that day. And then that's not the routine. Others need a leader, as Moses was like our Christ. And I'm going to interrupt what I wrote here. Oh, maybe not. To show them how to dispose of the body, if no, like temple, or not temple, big monument, statue to that person, like, look, he was buried here. But Moses was in charge of every little thing, even down to, this is how you got to bury the bodies. You do this, you do that. I guess every culture had a Moses, but does it matter? It does. If no statue was required, who made Moses a leader and a ruler? That's what they asked. Who was Christ? He made them male and female in his own image to prove created Elohim could not rule with no corruption, zero contamination. When the beginning of dust man, that's us, people made of dust. When the beginning of dust man became the focus of the angels that were still learning when Christ was on the cross. They were desiriously looking in to see what manner of things is going on here. So we're going to look at that verse, Matthew 20 and Matthew 25. They're hard. Now, in the closing of the written part here, our lives are being watched by angels in heaven, and they were watching Jesus. Some to see if he stubbed his toe, and others that when he's doing the miracles, feeding them, and then he's dying on a cross, that verse, they were intently saying what's going on. But remember, the angels in their real time live that day as 1,000-year thing. We're like those little mosquitoes or tsetse flies that live, die, age, all in what we consider like 3 days, but that's their whole lifetime. They thought it was a good long life. So that'll be our future. There's going to be a lot of things going on. This is going to be maybe a 2-part sermon lesson. I know people don't like sermons now. We all are on that do what is right in our own eyes phase until somehow Father, or this whatever sifting is going through, where people just think, no, I'm on my own and it's good that way. COVID proved it. Here we go. I'm going to keep that open for now. Here's the disclaimerage. And read it. Look at it. There it is. Everything's disclaimed. Is this a video? Oh, this is that steel I got. Look at this stuff that hangs on after. I don't even want to tell you how much hydrochloric acid I boiled this in. You can see it rusts almost immediately the next morning, but there were still things hanging onto it. You know, these white things, they bind on there. Crazy. I don't think I have any other pictures, but I did have, oh, there's some of that other one of what it did. I did have, well, I thought I had some pulled up that had something I wanted to show you. Man, I know I did, but I think I know where it is. Was it gallery? Yeah. Oh, no. Well, it's good. Looks like it's going to be a Bible study. Because I had some pictures pulled up. Maybe, Lord willing, I'll find them. But don't go anywhere. It's time for the Bible study. So I got paid today. I got to do something because somehow I'm paying too much for my Medicaid. This number is not going to do you any good. Isn't that crazy? I'm paying too much. I should get more spending money. You guys think I didn't earn my money? It's what you're working for. Now, here's what they were working for. Are we sharing the screen? Yep. Matthew 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius, 1 denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, they said, get to work. Going out about the third hour, he saw other people not working, standing idle in the marketplace. Verse 4, he said to them, you go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right, I will give you. So they went, the ones willing to work. Going out again about the 6th hour, the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour, so I guess they worked from the 8th hour till the noon hour. I don't know what day is, 6th hour, 3rd hour, whatever. It's a long day. They each received their denarius. Let's just pretend it was $1 or $100. And those who came first, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, these last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat. But he replied to one of them, friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to the last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do with what I choose with, or am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you sad that I'm being very generous to these other people who need the money as bad as anybody else? And a little bit, what good if you went out and said, yeah, I'll give you a job, and then here's a nickel. It would seem like a waste of time. You can get your own ideas on this. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? I think I pulled that up twice. We're going to look at, maybe save some of this for later, but this whole Council of Nicaea thing, in Istanbul, Constantinople. Oh, here's where they decided that all Christians believe in the Trinity. They're really serious about that's the mark of a Christian.
Does that make sense? The three persons of the Trinity have always existed. There's always been an I-you relationship for all before time even existed. Then you've got time, and all of a sudden you've got Arius saying Christ is being begotten at this point. Yeah, sorry. No, that's. Yeah, and you can imagine this being in Greek, and the nuance is very small, you know, and you might get a Jehovah's Witness.
It might be almost unnoticeable to some people, the nuance. So listen to their little arguments. I don't know what I have pulled up. I've been finding gold, testing my e-bike that I fixed yesterday. Hooray! I couldn't believe it. It was so smooth.
Knocking on your door saying, you know, Jesus is Lord and, you know, he's begotten of the Father and all these sorts of things, but they don't actually mean it in the same way. So this is a thing where two words can kind of mean two drastically different things for two different groups of people. Does that make sense? It's all about time.
Are you trying to make sense is the question. How was that? Pretty snarky?
So we're talking about what is in today modern Turkey. And I can use my little pointer, can't I? Is that red one there? There we go. So obviously you've got modern day Turkey sort of to the right there, and then you've got, you know, the rest of Europe across there with Greece and Italy and all the rest of it. And then the map on the right shows a bit more of a zoomed in version of it, and you can see the place called Nicaea on what is now a lake called Lake Iznik. So like I was saying before, there's often multiple names for these sorts of things. So back in the days of the council, this was under the Roman Empire. It would have had a Greek name, which is Nicaea. But today, because it's in modern day Turkey.
In modern day Asia, because with what they call the Buddha Confucius, Hebrew is an Oriental religion. Oh, yes, it is. I think I need to do my first. How did I skip quartropathy? I'm already out of order, but I'm interrupting. Watch, I'm going to right click, get a new tab. Sometimes I wanted to say is. Well, yes, it is not an Oriental religion. It is a monotheistic religion. Now, when I was in school and college in the 80s, it was. So they're wrong. Yeah, these were the Jews of the Bible. They were all, and it was they were from Turkey. They were ended up living in Asia. There were a lot of them living there. Anyway, I'm going to stand by that. They're from the Orient. We try was. One S, por favor. It says they are not. I won't bore you with that. Let's go back to some of this.
It's got a Turkish name, so it's called Iznik, and it's on a lake there.
But in the Bible, it's Asia, because the churches that the 7 letters were written to are what they call Turkey now.
So I think you can go and visit. Apparently it's nice, but I haven't had the luxury of being able to go there, but one day I'd like to.
This is where they faked it all.
We all together? Good. All right. So I'm just going to give a really brief historical context for the Council of Nicaea and the sort of background of why it kind of took place, I guess. So Perry Forrester, I think was her name. She'd done a talk a few months ago on Constantine the Great, and that is a good lecture that I encourage you to go.
I want to make sure and re-emphasize, so it does sound like people can hear me. How are you doing? Silent. Hopefully I'm not silent. Is it too quiet? That's kind of what I wanted to know, because this is an important part. What they did in the 300s and then they said in the 1300s, you know, was another great big deal that led up to the 1492. This is all Satan rewriting history. That's what this is. Don't buy any of it. This is how they want to reset history to convince people that still have the Bible. I see one right there. I have it pulled up online to read it. And what they don't want you to understand is what it says. They want to provide that for you. There's a Trinity. It's a part of the reset, the added 1,000 years. It happened in 300, the most important parts of history, 1300s and the 300s. Check it out.
Back and look at, because it kind of sets the context really well, because up until, you know, around this time, Christianity was actually illegal. So it kind of, you know, been birthed out of Jerusalem and everything that had happened there. And, you know, the Romans were sort of crushing it. They didn't want it. And it was illegal. But in 313 AD, under the emperors Constantine and Licinius, they actually agreed to make it legal. And this is known as the Edict of Milan. Now, we'll point out that they didn't make that the state religion at the time. All they did was just say it's not illegal anymore. Does that make sense? That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
And it's actually not until 55 years after the Council of Nicaea that we had the Edict of Thessalonica, which is where it became the state religion. So there's a depiction of Constantine the Great, as us Orthodox would probably call him. Obviously, who knows what he looked like.
There's a Trinity believer for sure.
So the council was called by Constantine the Great in 320 AD, and it was sort of towards the end of his life. If you recall the lecture from Perry, he'd sort of won his war with Maxentius. He had the Battle of Melvian Bridge where he adopted the Chi-Rho. So I've got some pictures there because Kevin said, make sure you got pictures. So
how bad, you know? Even the people that, like I used to think, was at the highest level, you know, I'm a Reformed Presbyterian, you know, and I stick right to the Bible. Now we know this is where they came up with the Trinity. This is where the globe lovers, Earth is not the center of anything. It's not important there's no God really. This is find God inside you. Thank you, but no Rome.
Another document from Socrates of Constantinople has got to be one of my uncles, right? It's got to be, yeah? In fact, my surname, Stambulidis, is the man from Istanbul. There's a whole story about Constantinople and Istanbul and
You're an
all that. But
orphan-trained person.
I'm going to use my beautiful pronunciation and pronounce his work as the Historia Ecclesiastica.
Yeah. Like I said, this might have to be two parts. What is a corporatocracy? Capitalist state? No, that's functions and interest of a state. You want to see corporate capitalism? There's that. Corporatocracy is an economic, political, judicial system controlled or influenced by business corporations or corporate interests. And for my world, that's mafia. The concept is how, bank bailouts, too big to fail. Sorry, the masses are not too big to fail. If they got tricked into Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, they no way they could ever pay. Here, this called the balloon interest. Don't worry, it's not going up. If it does, it'll be fine. It wasn't. Crony capitalism, ringing any bells? Authoritarian capitalism? Oligopolies? Cartels? Yeah, it's what they do. Gilded Age. Some people think that there are people like Piers Morgan and others who are going through a Howard Zinn moment of enlightenment of saying, I can't pretend to teach this bullshit anymore. It doesn't make sense to me. Like the people that are all of a sudden going like, we got to help the people in Gaza. They're just, I guess they're starving hundreds of thousands. Hey, who's in the Super Bowl? This looks familiar. Any time, any place. How do you want me to vote? Or do you want me to get beat with a Gutha Pertha cane? They like the collars, huh? Those are real people, I guess. We live in that time. It could have only done, bailouts. We're living this in real time also. And you're set up. They're set up. Everybody's set up. These guys are in control. You know it. I know it. The narrow road is ready to say, what? What? We already read this one. Okay, now this one is considered hard by people too. After the Sermon on the Mount, the whole Matthew 24, see those stones, not one will be left on another. He tells them about parables. We're going to look at one now. For it will be like a man going on a journey who calls his servants and entrusts to them his property, because it's Shiloh. It's always going to belong to him. It's his. Trust me, it's his. To one, he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came to settle accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 more. Verse 21. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had 2 talents, came forward, saying the same. He also and he was rewarded. He who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man. How did he know that? Where'd that come from? That's the first I heard of that from the other 2. But he continues, you're a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked, slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. That's what he thought. Then you ought to, if you thought that, you ought to have least have invested the money with the bankers, and at my coming, I should have received what was my own, and with some interest, something where you did something, anything. Remember, we have the example of most people. Wow. So we're supposed to make a living, huh? We got to find something to do. Okay. Well, I guess my daddy's a cobbler, I'll be a cobbler. For most people, that works good. And they want to be a good cobbler. And they're warping their woofing in case somebody says it's time to build a tent in the tabernacle. You're ready. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will more be given, and he who will have an abundance. Let me read that again. For to everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, in that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It continues. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all his angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit. Our Savior, using a term of adoption, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from before or from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or feed you or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these hombres, the men who are my brothers, hermano, you did it to me. Then he will say to those on the left, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and the angels. I know that's important. Is that considered semi, not milk of the word? Prepared for the devil and his angels. Sin started in heaven before the men of dust arrived. He was, Satan is the father of lies. Somebody showed up in the Garden of Eden, wicked, ready to deceive. So sin didn't start in the Garden of Eden with our batch of dust-made humans. And we will have a together group of dust types. At the end, they get rescued by fire. Yay! Yay! You've done it to me. Truly I say, as you did not, truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And those will go away into eternal punishment. I mean, I know those same people go, there's no such thing as eternal punishment. I only trust the words of Jesus. Okay.
Latin credo, which means I believe. So it's just a statement of beliefs in a very short, summarized fashion. So that's what the Nicene Creed is. One other thing I want to say at the outset is that a creed does not produce a doctrine. Creeds help formalize, articulate, and again, summarize what the New Testament and the Old Testament teach, but it does not create doctrine out of thin air or by popular vote. Instead, they are called together to settle a theological dispute or controversy, and that's what we see with the Nicene Creed. When you look at church history, a pattern emerges, one of controversy, and then council, and then creed. Well, let's look at that pattern as it relates to the Nicene Creed as we examine the historical and theological context of the Council of Nicaea. The Nicene Creed comes to us from 325 AD, sort of. And I say sort of because there's a later council that has a huge impact on what we now know as the Nicene Creed. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But for now, know that the Council of Nicaea takes place in 325 AD. Now, the controversy is often framed as a dispute about whether or not Jesus was truly divine. And that's true, but it's also a bit of an oversimplification because both sides probably would have been fine using the term divine for Jesus. The important thing to note, though, is that they meant very different things, with one side believing that Jesus was a created being and the other believing that he was co-eternal and co-equal with God the Father. So let's get into the context for what's going on.
So they framed the argument leaving out the truth that our spirit God is teaching a lesson to those spirit angels, and he used men of the dust to do it. And apart from before the foundation of the earth, plan is that eventually the spirit God eternally going to have a body that could say, look at my hand. But that's the same God. It's God. There is only one God, the Most High God, the one who gave us the, life and gave the angels life, that creator. Go.
Time. One person you need to know is Constantine, known to us as Constantine the Great. At this time, Rome is divided. So don't be picturing what you might picture when you're reading your New Testament and Caesar Augustus and a unified, powerful Roman Empire. It's been broken up into 4 distinct territories. It's known as a tetrarchy at this point. And there are 2 senior emperors called Augusti and 2 junior emperors called Caesars. There is a power struggle going on, particularly between the eastern and western sides.
You feel like you could jump ahead? Buffering, and 3, 2, 1, go.
Impact on how things play out. So now controversy emerges. And there's a few main players that you need to know about. One is Alexander. He's the bishop of Alexandria. You have Athanasius, who is pretty much Alexander's right-hand man.
Monkeys.
And then you have Arius.
I
Arius is
like
the antagonist in this
Arianism,
story. As
white power. I don't know where they got it from what he's teaching. Look at this letters that they use. Similar, but this A, much different than even, is that the same? I think so.
as you'll soon see.
Was that a, it is. Way to go, honky. So the Rimfam, six-pointed star, started the whole two-fingered Reformed Christian salute. That's as bad as me finding out that the Jesuits started post-millennial preterism.
Yes, Arius is the antagonist in this story, as you'll soon see. Arius brought about a movement called Arianism, and they believed that only God the Father was unbegotten, and therefore God the Son, Jesus, had to be a created being. He was not of the same substance as God the Father. He was different. He wasn't just like us. He was the first. He was the best created being, and through him everything else was created. But at the end of the day, they saw Jesus, they saw the Son as a creature. Alexander, Athanasius, and others, on the other hand, believed that Jesus was God the Son, that he was...
Who cares what they think, right? Here, look at it this way. At the time before Christ's resurrection, there was a point where he was pierced and blood and water fell down. Now, that's a body, but that's our God. That's our God. That's what Scripture teaches. And it's, it is finished. He has become the sacrificed sacrifice. He's the sacrificed sacrifice. In his mind is still that, what is Most High Spirit? It's spirit. Everywhere, knowing everything and being all powerful enough to know he did it. He did this. He did this plan. You can't stop that. You can't change that. You can only, by grace, accept it and realize, now I wonder what my talents are. Or you can start trying to, poke holes. Jesus is a hard man. Why did he make those Nephilim that he had to kill? See me roll my eyes? That's what they do when you're trying to make somebody act like that's a silly question or something like that. So that's why I was doing it. I thought this was better when I first watched it.
Being of the same substance with God the Father. Now, technically, they produce what is known as the Niceo-Constantinopolitan Creed.
What?
And that is really hard to say, and I probably didn't even say it correctly, and I've tried 3 times. That's why we just call it the Nicene Creed today. But it is a fuller, more expanded version of that creed from the Council of Nicaea in 325.
All fake. All fake. What's this one? Oh, this is that Edict of Milan. Again, Constantine the One. Maybe they got some statues and they said, guess who we found? And he's working with Mr. Smirky, another emperor, and they controlled the Balkans, star forts. It's, basically this, for lack of a better word, and sorry, this is white power. And most people who will hear this aren't the 100 or dozen or so who are going to hear it today. It's going to be the people that look back and go, wow, I'm of color. I know that there will be a camp of the saints in India, in Mongolia, in Siberia. There's going to be people that are going like, wow, I knew somehow, those colonies and the white people that were us, it didn't trickle down to anybody. It stayed with the people that were the heads of the mafias. These guys, they knew God, they knew what was going on. They changed it into myths so they could sex it up and put women in charge. And now we have Mariolatry. That's where it all went. And this is all fake, the whole trace the history through Josephus, through Augustine and those people, Polycarp's, give me a break. The world was destroyed. People were coming out of their caves going like, wow, I am so happy that was good. Remember, the Apostle Paul and John and Peter told us to be on our guard. There's going to be wolves in sheep's clothing. Welcome to being ruled with a rod of iron. They all pretended to be Christian, looking for wolves in sheep clothing. Well, some of them were. Edict of Milan, everybody. I'm going to leave it up.
To the Americans. Aguinaldo and his forces also officially declared independence from Spain. Aguinaldo also declared himself president of the Philippines. Meanwhile, the German Navy also decided to show up acting like they were going to take over the Philippines now. Dewey sent a telegram back to the United States to request more troops so that the Americans could fully take over the Philippines. That said, Aguinaldo and Dewey had both agreed that they would join forces to take Spain down. We'll figure out the details later. Over the next 2 months, more and more American troops arrived in the Philippines.
This isn't going to be
Scare the
good.
Germans away. Soon the 13,000 Spanish troops in Manila were completely cut off from the outside world. After Basilio Agustin, the Spanish Governor General of the Philippines, tried to surrender to the Filipinos, the Spanish Parliament was embarrassed and kicked him out of office, replacing him with a dude named Fermin Yodenes. Yodenes secretly worked out a deal with Dewey to have a fake battle in which Spain would surrender the Philippines to the United States, not
here's
the
what
Filipinos. Build a small fleet into the Philippines, an archipelago made up of at least 7,100 islands in Southeast Asia. At the time, Spain controlled the islands, but it was quickly losing its grip over them. You see, for the past couple years,
most people that weren't white still dressed like white people, and only, our history says, no, the white people didn't cheat, or now they got this whole Darwinism. It was a true fight to the top, and they all played flat earth nation Risk. And when the Orientals of Japan started to win, they faked atomic weapons, ganged up and said, no, we'll take it the last centuries from here. That's what happened. These guys won. Japan and the others, they were winning everything, man. So it was double cross time.
Filipino nationalists, or those who wanted the Philippines to break free from Spain so that it could be its own country, had been revolting. Led by Emilio Aguinaldo, these Filipino revolutionaries had had lots of success by the time Dewey showed up. All that was mainly left for them to capture was Manila, the capital of the Spanish East Indies. Meanwhile, the United States was now also at war with Spain in what became known as the Spanish Spanish-American War.
False
So
flag.
that's what had
Remember
led
the
Dewey to
Maine.
take his fleet to the Spanish-controlled Philippines. On May 1st, Dewey's forces attacked the Spanish Navy stationed at Manila Bay, easily defeating it. You see, Dewey's ships were made of steel, and the Spanish ships were wooded. The Spanish lost 350 men, the Americans lost 0, in what became known as the Battle of Manila Bay. Meanwhile, Aguinaldo wasn't even in the Philippines at this time. He was in Hong Kong. After hearing about the American victory in Manila Bay,
All right, I do want to skip ahead.
in Manila. Later that day, Aguinaldo officially declared, quote, that peace and friendly relations with the Philippines be broken and that the latter be treated as enemies within the limits prescribed by the laws of war. The Philippine-American War had begun. Over the next day and a half, 55 Americans died and 238 Filipinos died in the first and biggest battle of the war, the 1899 Battle of Manila, when the Filipinos tried to deliver a truce.
Wow, somebody told me that 1 million people died in this.
Stephen Otis, the American military governor of the Philippines,
I wonder if he had anything to do with the Otis elevators. Those were a rewritten history that's like, oh, this guy did it.
While the United States won that first battle, soon Aguinaldo and his troops had managed to take control of Luzon, the largest island in the Philippines, and they refused to let American ships dock there. In response, President McKinley sent a fleet of new ships there to put down what the Americans...
So you've heard of the Spanish-American War. What else was going on?
Of sharpshooters even got the nickname, quote, marksmen of death. After this, the atrocities got significantly worse. First of all, American troops became increasingly frustrated with guerrilla warfare tactics because it eroded their trust with the civilian population. In other words, they generally stopped trusting pretty much...
And this continued through Vietnam.
All Filipinos. They began scorched earth campaigns.
Sounds familiar.
Just destroying a bunch of the Filipinos' resources.
Why not?
Relocating civilians to concentration camps. Yes, you heard that right. Concentration camps, where thousands, at the very least, ultimately died from disease and starvation. They often cut off food from being transported to the villages they didn't burn down. There were also reports of American soldiers robbing civilians of everything they owned of value. There were reports of rape. Some American soldiers tortured prisoners. One well-documented way they did this was through something called, quote, the water cure. When a Filipino prisoner wouldn't say the right thing, American soldiers would hold them down and force
Waterboarding. It's been torture until George Bush said it wasn't.
them to drink
I
a
voted for that pervert twice. We were fooled.
bunch of water in a short amount of time. They'd often hold their mouths open with a stick and close their nose with pincers so the water wouldn't come back up. On November 27th, 1900, American soldiers gave Jovellanos Ildama, a Filipino who was the mayor of the town of Igbaras, the water cure. Cut open. Immediately, orders were received from General Wheaton to burn the town and kill every native in sight, which was done to a finish. About 1,000 men, women, and children were reported killed. I'm probably
handful thrown into it. Millions of ants had done the rest.
goodness. Filipino soldiers reportedly mutilated American soldiers and slowly killed them so that they
There really are. There's no super race. There's not like, oh, the whites cheated and got on the top. It's not like that. Satan set this up so that the obvious people that shouldn't be on the top are now being looked at as like, how did this happen? Somehow this is part of the plan.
they would suffer. By the end of the war, Filipino sharpshooters were targeting chaplains, doctors, nurses, and even wounded soldiers. On June 5th, 1899, the Filipino army lost its best general in kind of a crazy way. Members of Aguinaldo's own cabinet assassinated Antonio Luna. This
Wow.
was pretending to be prisoners of war, escorted by other American soldiers in Philippine Army uniforms.
So this is probably all a fake rewrite too. It gives, how much of it is real? Are these not computer generated? Could they, it's not possible to explain away that whole, they added 1,000 years. Galileo, Copernicus, they said, forget what you see, we'll tell you what you know. Normal people believe this, or we'll skin you alive.
Aguinaldo didn't give up much of a resistance. He was exhausted by that point and tired of seeing Filipinos killed. On April 1st, Aguinaldo swore an oath accepting that the
April Fool's Day, right?
United States did now officially control the Philippines. He even swore allegiance to the American government. On April 19th, he issued a formal
Hitler's birthday, the day the federal building in Oklahoma City, Waco, the list goes on.
surrender, telling his followers to put down their weapons and give up the fight. That said, not all Filipinos were ready to do that, and sporadic hostilities would continue over the next 12 years.
So it was a lot of people, and this sellout, don't believe he was a big oil fan.
The United States was still fighting this war.
Racist.
Pushed for a solution to end the war and a path for the Filipinos to eventually govern themselves. To help them do that, he appointed his friend William Taft as civil governor of the archipelago. Ultimately, the war ended. Well, the main part of the war ended when the United States government promised the Filipinos that they could self-govern as long as the United States government could still kind of control them and protect them. And,
there's always got to be something weird.
Don't say that you love me. Just tell me that you want me. Just say that you want me. Don't say that you
33 and swastika meanders. Let's do some goose stepping. Where'd they learn that? I thought you'd want to just see the 33 and the swastika and stuff, So Stevie Nicks is, she's 76 now. She thought that was her life, and she was willing to do anything to get it.
This? The answer, somehow, was yes. Because if Fleetwood Mac had proven anything, it was that they could endure anything. The pain, the betrayal, the mistakes. It all became part of their story, woven into
They
the
all cheated with each other.
music that defined them. Stevie channeled the heartbreak into her songs, letting the pain bleed into the melodies. Sarah, one of her most haunting, deeply personal tracks, was a love letter to what could have been, a whisper of a life that slipped through her fingers. The lyrics carried a quiet sadness, a longing for something that was never real enough to hold on to. And Mick? He buried himself in the music, in the madness of being the man who kept the machine running. His relationship with Stevie became another piece of history, another chapter in the tangled web of love and heartbreak that was Fleetwood Mac. Looking back, Stevie has called the affair a mistake, one that hurt people, one that she regrets, but she's never denied the truth of it. The connection between them was real, even if it was fleeting. And like everything in her life, she turned it into art, into something that would last forever. Because, in the world of Fleetwood Mac, nothing was ever simple. Love and music, pain and passion, they were always tangled together, inseparable. And for Stevie Nicks, that was both the greatest gift and the deepest curse. The moment Stevie Nicks and Don Henley met, the chemistry was undeniable. She was the reigning...
So she had an abortion, you know? It's like she had to do it, I guess. That's what that song Sarah is about now.
Fleetwood Mac, the glue that held the band together. Stevie was the band's biggest star, the voice that had captivated millions. Together, they had everything, except the ability to make it work. Their romance was hidden from the public, but within the band, the tension was impossible to ignore. Lindsay knew, Christine knew, John knew, and no matter how hard they tried to keep it from affecting the music, it did. The unspoken glances, the shift in energy, the quiet resentment, it all seeped into the atmosphere of Fleetwood Mac.
Watch the video. She talks about it was her biggest regret, having an abortion. Okay. Now, this was a shoved down my throat. I think and the movie hadn't even come out yet, and they were sending out flyers to the schools like, wait till you see what this movie's about. And this was their future. Richest people get to go out and play with the weapons that nobody else could have because they had all the money. And this was cutting edge music. The screen cap is from the computer. Oh, I don't see it. Huh. Well, if you saw the screen cap for this, it's from this movie. The computer's zero. That's a gun. They just shoot a tree. Just any little distraction. Rollerball. I think I showed the disclaimer enough.
Anthony, oh, Hardly, sorry things in a mess, the rollerball champion. Again here today. This is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to misplace things.
I'm misplacing data?
The whole of the 13th century.
So do they do these things by accident? They misplaced all the data on the whole of the 13th century. Well, they've got the 3rd century nailed down. That's when the Nicene Creed, everything, that's when they figured out there's a Trinity. And somehow they had a little complete, there's holes in their story leading up to the, I'm Galileo and I'm in love with the Pope. Don't imprison me next door to him and call it house arrest.
Misplaced the computers, several conventional computers. We can't find them. We're always moving things around, getting organized. My assistants and I. But this is Zero's fault. Zero. He's the world's file cabinet. Yeah, pity.
Yeah. Let's go look at Zero.
Now, but we lost those computers with all of the 13th century in them. Not much in the century, just Dante.
Dante's Inferno, the Peloponnesian War. They came up with that crap.
And a few corrupt popes, but it's so distracting and annoying. You unlimited restrictions here, of course, but you have to come so many times.
Now, this is always a part of the movie that I never understood, and I don't want to go down a rabbit trail, but if you do, he's tired. And he sits down, so Jonathan sits down with him, and that makes him stand up. Is that what I'm seeing here?
All takes such effort.
Do the executives still come here?
Oh, they used to, some of them.
What about the books?
Books, oh no, they're all changed, all transcribed, all information is here. Zero, of course. He's the central brain, the world's brain. Fluid mechanics, fluidics. He's liquid, you see. His waters touch all knowledge. Everything we ask has become so complicated now. Each thing we ask. This morning, we wanted to know something about the 13th century. It flows out into all our storage systems. He considers everything.
Oh, that's the 1200s.
He's become so ambiguous now, as if he knows nothing at all.
Could you tell me something?
He wants to know about the corporate wars. That's to us would be the mafia. You know, how did they settle and come up with a new commission to agree that, you know, look, man, we can't have a Japan winning this war. We're going to have to all turn on them and we can fake a nuclear weapon, pretend they're all scared. Yeah, I think the Italian mafia, because it was Lucky Luciano working with the Rothsteins.
Something about the corporate wars?
Wars. Oh, yes, of course, we have them all here. Punic War, Prussian War, Peloponnesian War, Crimean War, Wars of the Roses. One doesn't perhaps recall them in sequence, but corporate wars. Well, Zero will, or can, I'm sure, tell you a memory pool. You see? He's supposed to tell us where things are and what they might possibly mean. Look, Zero, a visitor. Jonathan E., rollerball champion. You'll find.
He's the human champion. He wants to ask him a question. It doesn't go well.
Do you remember?
Does it answer you?
Oh, yes, it speaks. It finds things and loses them. And
Gus.
loses itself. Ask anything. He'll find it for you. Section unlocked. Won't you, Zero?
I'd like some information about corporate decisions, how they're made and who makes them.
Theodore, you heard the question. Answer him.
Negative.
You don't have to give him a full political briefing. Answer.
Negative.
This is Jonathan E. He has to know. Make it simple. Answer.
Corporate decisions are made by corporate executives. Corporate executives make
I know
corporate
we have the
decisions.
answers. We do have
Knowledge converts
the
to
waters
power.
of history.
Energy equals
Oh.
genius.
Meaning.
Power is
I don't want
knowledge.
to bully you.
Genius is energy.
We got here. So I was doing some other studying today about the menstrual cycle, because the cycle, a menstrual part of it is not the cycle. The cycle includes the whole 28 days. And I found out that it really is the aspects of, for humans, because a lot of mammals do not menstruate. It seems like it's something that they came up with a whole different idea of, like, well, there were two evolutions and one made women menstruate. Huh? Naturally occurring hormones drive the cycles. The cyclical rise and fall of follicle stimulating hormone prompt the production of growth cochleates, immature egg cells. The hormone estrogen stimulates the uterus lining to thicken to accommodate an embryo should fertilization occur. The blood supply of the thickened lining provides nutrients to a successfully planted embryo. If it does not occur, the lining breaks down and blood is released. Period. Called the menstruation. Each cycle has 4 phases. Each cycle occurs in phases based on events either in the ovary or the uterus. The ovarian cycle consists of the follicular phase, ovulation, and luteal. Like the menstrual cycle can cause some women to experience premenstrual syndrome with symptoms that may include tender breasts and tiredness. More severe symptoms that affect daily living, you like that? Are premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. They're against drunk driving also. During the menstrual cycle is modified by the pill. Cycles and phases. Here's this phase. There's that phase where your hormones change. So it's a real thing. I wonder if they got like, what's the history of it? That sounds weird, doesn't it? Androstenedione. Wow, there's an ovary egg about to be released. It could have been you. I think they superimposed a face in there. You see the nose and the mouth, the throat. They do that on purpose because so many women don't know how to repent from, what Stevie Nicks did too. They get, it's a big deal. So, but anyway, they do, after they admitted some of that earlier, they do go into, it doesn't make women crazy. It doesn't make them, it don't remind them of like, oh, I could tell they don't want to hear it. Okay. That they consider, I think they said it's part of normal mood swings. Okay. All right. What's this one? It says here, why do humans menstruate while most mammals do not? First off, did anybody else know that? Or did you assume that all mammals did? To me, I learned something today. And that people in college ask, why is this long debated? And I've never heard about it. Arguing that menstruation occurs as a mechanistic consequence of hormone-induced differentiation of the endometrium, referred to as spontaneous decidualization, or SD. SD evolved. The reason the human, according to them, female menstruates is because of a hormone-induced evolution. And here's why it did it. Because of the maternal-fetal conflict. Maybe it's not that, Freud was wrong, I guess. Spontaneous decidualization evolved by genetic assimilation of the decidualization reaction. What is induced by the fetus in non-menstruating species. I think that's because they want other people to think that mammals have instincts. That's why they know when to migrate and, things like that. The idea that menstruation occurs as a consequence of spontaneous decidualization has been proposed in the past, but here we are in the present, and a novel hypothesis on how it evolved. We argue that SD became genetically stabilized in menstruating lineages of your primate species, according to them, allowing females to prepare for pregnancy without any signals from the fetus, the baby. Isn't that amazing? So finally, wow, hey, there's a lot of not hormone activity in some of the hormones for a lot of the time. I don't know what that means. Those are hormone cycles. This cycle is not, the menstruation is not this cycle. Wait, I don't think women have this. Human women? It's something, hormone causes a sexual frenzy in some. Typically, estrous cycles repeat until death. These cycles are widely variable in duration and frequency depending on the species. Some animals may display bloody vaginal discharge, often mistaken for menstruation. Oh, okay. They don't menstruate. They have this. But human women don't. So that's why we have a different evolved thing. They don't do this. Mammals share the same reproductive system, including the regulatory hyperthalamic system. Do re mi wants you to be focused on your temple, and your hyperthalamic system in particular produces gangliotropin releasing hormone, blah, blah, blah. Pituitary gland secretes these things. That's important. Luteinizing hormones, elephant shrews. Estrus is derived from the Latin word meaning frenzy or gadfly. Gadfly is somebody that bounces around the party going, hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? Hey, what's up? I think that's pretty much what that means. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. Refers when the female is sexually receptive in heat in American English. Well, I'm sure women don't go into heat. Some other thing, maybe we'll keep that up. Here's that. They really pushed this book. They couldn't even get the author's name's Jewison. It's about a corporatocracy. And look, we're going into a whole new age. We just canceled the gold. It's a fiat. We're going to start, perverts are going to be, and now it's unashamed. It's going. It's Houston Rollerball, corporate sponsored teams with gambling, supercomputers. You saw how it all worked. If it's going to be a rabbit trail then rabbit trail it. Here's this. Look at this. There was a volcano in this country. Look at how nice it was before. You've heard of Victor Hugo. He showed a picture of it. He's good at that. And here it is, in 1902. You don't hear a lot about the Mount Pelée. It was in the middle of the Lesser Antilles, Martinique. Very few people, but the people that lived there were living large, man. They had it going on. This is these whole cities, and this is what they found left over. And they say, oh, it killed about 1,000 people, blew the top off the mountain. Oh, okay. What?
But my family was gone. I stood on the back porch. There was nobody home. I was stunned and amazed.
The Pretenders, that was a big deal. I guess even today, is it true? They're arguing, will it matter? Both sides don't believe in the Bible. They know this whole Jewish thing is not really Jewish Bible stuff, but what are we going to do? Nothing that saves you if you're not ready to just say, I'm renouncing all the war. This is all a lie. You can't just call bullshit on one thing and all of a sudden think you're going to be like Howard Zinn and be accepted. Is he even for real?
This woman, but the backlash, which we'll get into in the next segment.
Yeah, this is almost like he's having a Howard Beale kind of meltdown at this point in his career.
Right.
I just ran out of bullshit.
Howard, another one.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I think. Look at is that a Ukrainian pin?
Dead Palestinian journalist is a member of Hamas. Is that your position?
No, listen, I appreciate Piers.
That is also bullshit.
But misrepresenting every
So that's 2 out of 2. What's the
moment.
third reason?
Our mutual friend Douglas Murray was embedded with the IDF in Lebanon.
You said the words yourself. I love Douglas, but he was embedded with the IDF.
Right.
He's unbelievably pro-Israel.
Let me finish.
So of course
Will
he
you
was
allow
going
me
to
to
write
finish?
what
No.
he witnessed while embedded with the IDF.
No, let me finish what his experiences there were. The difference
I
is
read
that in
it. You don't have to tell me.
There is something I think that you won't have heard. The IDF are able to allow journalists into Lebanon. He wasn't the only one. There were many other international
There have been a
journalists with him.
tiny... No.
Those
Again,
other
bullshit.
international journalists with him
Bullshit.
were very clear.
There
that
have been a tiny
beg your
handful handful of journalists led in by the IDF in tightly controlled environments to witness what the IDF were prepared to let them see.
And you know what those
And actually, what it
journalists
needs
said?
this war to stop the bullshit, which is out of control, by the way, in this last 3 minutes, is to let international journalists go in and do their jobs. And they.
So it's been a year and a half, over a year and a half. They're finally coming to the grips of maybe the 100,000 children that they don't count as, you know. What is a pretender? That's why I showed the pretenders. Everybody tries pretending, you know, or they fake it till you make it. A pretender, though, is someone who claims to be the rightful ruler of their own temple or their own country. This is where it goes, you know, that's where Queen Anne, little early cleavage there in 1702, popularized the word referring to her Roman Catholic half-brother, those fake Stuarts. He's a Jacobite, and that's who founded the United States, the Phrygians and all those people, Phrygian caps, your broken chains, your goddesses, Colombia, the ones for Argentina, all of the ones that got freed. The French fleet sailed from Dunkirk with the Pretender on board. Napoleon complained in this book, look, I canceled this prince. How come you're still listing him as a noble? Well, they got restored after they got rid of the use of Napoleon. Excuse me. But this is part of what the fake history is and how they did it. They just say, oh, well, they're a pretender. Now they did this. Then they did that. There were the 30 tyrants who were an allusion to the 30 tyrants of Athens 500 years earlier. Really? They weren't the same ones? Greek pretenders, separate pretenders, modern Greece, French pretenders, everybody arguing about it. Russian pretenders, pretenders in Orthodox churches. Who's the real leaders? Well, the Jesuits and the Rosicrucians, those people set it up. The ones that planned the Darwinian that said, we embrace the fake globe because of the fake Copernicus. Pretenders. Here's that book. And it was first published, you know, okay, we've got to get it in writing, they said, after 1711. It's always going to come down here. It's not, oh, it could be 1313. It could be 1813. It could be 1640, 1848. I've heard them all. It's 1711. It goes back 290 years from 9/11. And then we have 45 more. I've been saying that when we still got 35 years. Don't worry. We're back at 20. No, I don't know when I started saying that, but now we got about 20 left. It sounds like a long time. It's not. Flies by, especially if you're a couch potato and they shut off the power. You go, where's my flashlight? I thought we had some candles. Myrtle, I'm going to put you to the moon. What's all this stuff? They got the nobles. It's all fakety doodah because they're running these small countries and they're all complicit with their United Nations. What's this 3rd century crisis? That's the 200s. Assassinations, Severus Snape. I mean, Alexander, his own troops. Everything. You know, you got to fake it somewhere. There was none of this. There was Armageddon, then 1,000 years there where we can see from the paintings how they lived in a lot of it. And then there was the rewrite of history that said, nah, man, we were killing people for bad theology, for, you know, Rome. They burn them alive. Is the playbook changed? is it not still the rebels against the empire? And they got you pulling for the, you know, the empire? Who were the 30 tyrants? Not, they got names for them all. 30 rulers who appeared in the Historia Augusta. Okay, same story as what the royals of today foist on us, having ostensibly been pretenders to the throne of Rome. Okay, well, guess what? The fake Muslims have another fake story that is, well, who's the real rulers? They got myth for every single one written by a computer that sometimes goes faulty. These other ones were the same ones. What is a morganic marriage? Marriage between people of unequal social rank. They don't like to do it, but when they find somebody that's a real stud, they'll do it and they'll include in their royal families. Too bad they got messed up genetically, and that's where hemophilia started. Yeah, you're welcome. Hemophilia, it started with, you know, if there's bad blood, they did it with that. It's not Nephilim blood. There's still, it's a morganic marriage. They don't like it. This is a marriage between a man of high birth and a whore. I'm kidding, but not really. They were doing it all the way up to the dollar brides. One of the greatest men I know, the greatest friend I know there might have been some great. RJ's he's related to Churchill's mom. She was a dollar bride, you know. Yeah, her parents were super rich, so they sold her so that they could have the money. She didn't care. She was into it, man. Genghis Khan had some. You see, a lot of wars start because they're going, you're a pretender. This is all that the earthquake showed. They don't show any of this, that how nice that town was, and Victor Hugo drew a picture of it. They just said, big earthquake. So it's just the Nephilim Bible study. So that means you did it. I did it. We made it. What is prophecy anyway to the world? Prophecy is, in truth and reality, an emanation sent forth by divine being through the medium of active intellect? Huh. Oh, it's a TIFF file. No thanks. They're too big. So and a lot of times, like the Reagans, they get caught claiming they're not into it, but they are. But the spirit of prophecy, you know, is the testimony of Jesus. I'm trying to think. Revelation 21 verse 6 is my first hunch. Nope. It is done. Spring of living water. Well, there it is. The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus. Got it. I believe I've got it. Is it 16? Nope, that's the right-handed. Huh. Anybody know that one off the top of their head? One thing I don't want you to forget is that it's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. That's right. The mud flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you. And me and my friends never will, because we are one called, two chosen, three being faithful to having your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Avedersen. Nagaman. Adios, amigos.